Hey guys, what's going on? Megan here. All right, Q&As, answering questions from my school community. Let's get straight to it. First, let's look at the poll results. My hand grip strength is above 110 pounds. Okay, that's most people. Good, good. You don't want to be below 110 pounds if you're trying to assess your net androgen status using hand grip strength. All right, let's get straight to it. First question from Alex Konoplev. Bro, what is the mechanism of action of magnesium in the context of increasing testosterone levels? Okay, so magnesium plays so many roles on net androgen status. Well, for one, it increases free testosterone, so it modulates SHBG. So it makes sure that your SHBG is not too active because you don't want SHBG too low or too high. You guys know the whole deal, inverted U curve. So magnesium helps with that. Obviously, magnesium helps lowering inflammation, so it's an indirect role. If inflammation is high, it doesn't matter how good your lifestyle or whatever it is, your T levels will be low, or in your net androgen status will be low, and then your estrogen is gonna go up as well. So that's one way magnesium indirectly increases testosterone activity, which is net androgen status. Right? Remember, we don't really care about the level, right? For the millionth time, we don't care about the actual testosterone level in the blood. It's almost useless in isolation. We care about the actual activity, right? The NAS. So yeah, magnesium increases that through that pathway. There's also obviously absorption and the retention of a lot of key minerals, right? Magnesium helps with that. Magnesium helps with. I'm going off the top of my head, so I'm gonna forget. There's so many things magnesium does. It does so many hundreds of reactions in the body. I think it's like 300 or some crazy number. Obviously, it helps with ATP, with energy production. Right, you're not gonna have high nitrogen status if your mitochondria is not converting nutrients into ATP. So magnesium helps with that, right? With energy levels. It also helps with lowering stress, modulating cortisol, allowing you to sleep, which is obviously going to lead to higher testosterone and luteinizing hormone. I mean, the list is endless, endless. Magnesium activates vitamin D, right? And you guys know, you have vitamin D3 receptors, sorry, vitamin D receptors in your Leydig cells, in your fucking balls, and all throughout your body. And without magnesium, you can't activate vitamin D, right? Which is actually a hormone. So the list is endless. Do not be deficient in magnesium, and unfortunately, most people watching this video are not getting enough magnesium. Over 50% of men don't get enough magnesium, and that's not even if you factor in the shitty soil and all the other things that compete with magnesium for absorption. If you factor that in, the number is probably more than 70% of men. So get your magnesium, guys. Get it mainly from foods. A lot of, again, dark chocolate, quinoa, wheat bran. For me, wheat bran is goaded. I spam wheat bran every day because it not only gives me magnesium but also fiber, which is crucial for keeping estrogen in check. So get your magnesium, guys. Next, what's more important for testosterone production? Adequate protein consumption or fat consumption? This is from AH. Both are necessary for humans, whereas carbs are not. I already mentioned the role that carbs play in all this, but okay. So you're saying also that's a common misconception. People say, "Oh well, we don't really need carbs because our body makes it." Yeah, it's because it's so important that our body makes it. It's the other way around, guys. We cannot survive long term without glucose. So our body has evolved many ways of converting both protein and fats into glucose. People think that means carbs are not important. No, it's telling you how important glucose is. So you actually have it backwards. It is so important that the body's like, fuck this. I'm gonna find a way to create this thing if you don't get it from food. But anyway, back to your question. What's more important for testosterone? Again, baseline, right? First, you gotta factor in the baseline, right? You need baseline amount of protein to survive. You need a baseline amount of fatty acids to survive, right? So I'm assuming you mean once you have the minimum, right? Because if you have zero protein, you're gonna die. You have zero fats, you're also gonna die. Your body cannot make several forms of fatty acids. So I'm assuming you mean if you have the minimum amount of protein to survive and the minimum amount of fat to survive, what is more important? In that case, it would be fats, right? Because by increasing your fats, not only increasing your calories, but you're also increasing, remember fats play a lot of role in the body apart from just energy, right? Your cell membrane, the absorption of fat soluble vitamins like vitamin D, E, K, and vitamin A. Um, it also plays a role in bile production and transport and blah blah blah. So as long as you have the minimum amount of protein and the minimum amount of fat to survive, increasing fats will give you a bigger bang for your buck than increasing protein. Now, of course, that does not mean that protein is not important, right? Because people are going to strawman me and be like, oh, are you saying I shouldn't care? No, you need all of your nutrients. That's why I really don't like the questions like, oh, what's more important between this and that? And I'm like, they both play a role, and they work together. It's like saying, what's more important, the steering wheel or your engine? Huh? What? You need both. You need a steering wheel to obviously move the car around, and you need the engine. So you cannot compare them. I like comparing things that are not synergistic, right? But yeah, to answer your question, if fats will be more important, but you also need to increase your protein for obviously several reasons. The enzymes that convert cholesterol into pregnenolone and progesterone and DHEA and testosterone and DHT. Guess what? Your body cannot make those enzymes without amino acids. So you need sufficient protein. So who cares if you're getting enough fats, right? You're getting your nutrients, you're absorbing DEK2, right? All your fat soluble vitamins. Yeah, 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 good. Who cares if you have no enzymes to continue that process of converting cholesterol to testosterone? And where are those enzymes going to come from, right? Amino acids from the protein in your diet. So hopefully that answers your question, Mr. AH. Next, my nigga Andy. You said that hormones are local and have effects in specific regions. Will boosting overall test and DHT help body tissues and bones that were deprived of androgens during developmental period grow to their fullest potential? I'm 19. Okay, let's see. You said hormones are local. Yes, so that's another thing people don't understand is that hormones have uh, local, we have different sensitivities to hormones in different parts of our body. That's why two people can inject testosterone. One person will get a huge, beard. Another person won't. Another person would get gyno. Another person wouldn't. Another person would lose their hair. Another person doesn't. Right? We have different sensitivities to the exact same hormone in different parts of our body, mainly because of genetics and epigenetics and things like that. Okay. So that's when people say, oh, I have high T, therefore I should look like I have high T. Oh, I have low T, I should look like I have low T. I'm like, no, that's not how it works, right? You could have low T and have androgenic, effects on different parts of your body. And you could have high T and have some parts of your body that look low T as hell, right? So that's why I keep saying the whole testosterone level thing is blown out of proportion. People say, oh, I have 1,000 nanogram per deciliter. Oh, I have 300. Who cares? What matters is the binding to the androgen receptor, right? And the activation of the genes that the AR, the androgen receptor, transcribes. And that will be different in different parts of your body. You also have to factor in the anti-androgens. But anyway, so yes, well, boosting T and DHT, yeah, it's gonna increase. So if you increase T and DHT, even after puberty, you're gonna get some benefits, some androgenic benefits, depending again on the part of the body. Because some things, for example, height, right? If your growth plates, are closed, good luck with that, right? You could increase growth hormone and T all you want. And by the way, that's how T increases height in males is by increasing growth hormone activity and IGF-1. So certain things you could still make progress. For example, let's say you have the genetics for a big beard, but you were low T during puberty. Well, at age 25, if you start increasing your DHT and your T, your beard is gonna grow, right? Because it's not like you have a window where if you don't get a beard, you fucked, right? It's not like height. Same thing with your penis, right? If you have micro penis, which is actually a medical medical condition, I laugh every time because I'm like, who named it micro penis? The scientist who named it that is so evil. But anyway, yeah. So if you have micro penis during puberty, and after puberty, you increase DHT. By the way, DHT is the main androgen for penis size. It's not testosterone. It's DHT. Testosterone plays a role, of course. If you maximize your DHT after puberty, you might get a small increase in your penis. You know, again, assuming that you have the genetics for a normal penis, and the main reason why you had micro penis was because of low DHT. Whereas some other people, you increase based on the study, you give them DHT treatment or you increase the DHT, and even after puberty, they're screwed because they, for whatever reason, they either reach the maximum uh, penis size that they could achieve with their genetics, or uh, the window is closed, right? So it's very complicated, very complicated. That's also why some men will get on TRT in their late 30s, and then they'll start to develop masculine features, as if they're going through a second puberty, right? So it depends. Different tissues, different sensitivities. It's not, a one size fit all. Oh, you high T and now boom, you get the jaw, the height, the brow ridge. No, 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 no. All right, next, Alejandro Munoz. So is the main point of boosting T, DHT, and the androgen receptor just to pretty much get a shortcut to more gains, less fat, better health markers, etc.? Correct. Correct. The whole point of all of my testosterone videos is to get you to increase not just T, but also DHT, which is the most potent androgen. In fact, most of my testosterone videos are actually DHT boosting videos. I just can't say DHT because the algo, for the most part, is not going to push it out because most people don't even know what the fuck DHT is. They just think DHT hair loss. That's all they know. So if I say how to boost DHT, only the nerds like us, like you guys and myself, know what I'm talking about, right? So most of my testosterone videos is really to increase DHT. And why am I trying to increase DHT, right? It's not just for the sake of DHT, it's because we're trying to activate the androgen receptor. So every T boosting video is really to increase free T, so that free T can convert to DHT, so that DHT can activate the androgen receptor, and so that the androgen receptor can give us what we really want, which is all the benefits of quote unquote testosterone. Is really, the androgen receptor. You get it? But I gotta simplify. I gotta be like, oh, the 10 testosterone boosting commandments, how to boost T, because you gotta play with the algo. I mean, it's business, or nobody will see the video. And I've tried it. I've tried to make things, specific and whatever. It gets no views. It's like DHEA. DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone, is such a very important hormone. But if I make a DHEA video, it's gonna get like 500 views because nobody even knows what DHEA is. So yes, to answer your question, the whole goal of boosting T and DHT and free T and androgen receptor is to get a shortcut to more muscle mass, less body fat, more strength, more aggression, lower anxiety, more energy, more motivation. Testosterone is that's why I call it the hormone of God. I have videos dating back like I think 15 years or 10 years, I don't fucking know, where I call it the hormone of God. It is such an OP hormone. People think to this day that they understand testosterone. They don't. They don't. People think testosterone is like overrated or whatever. No, you guys have no idea how crucial that molecule is. It is a cheat code. That's why everybody's hopping on TRT, right? Except a few of us. Everybody's hopping on TRT. You got podcasters, you got presidents, politicians, CEOs, people who don't even care about bodybuilding are hopping on TRT. Why? Because testosterone is such a cheat code for success. It's not just muscle, it's not just fat loss. It has so many effects apart from that. But yeah, so yes, to answer your question, correct. Boosting T's to get a shortcut to success, pretty much. Next, can you explain how acute spikes in testosterone, such as from competition and interacting with hot women, can lead to more androgen receptors long term? Okay, so you gotta understand, by the way, his name is Adam Lebroni. I told you, every time I see your last name, I think of The Rock. I think of Jabroni. I don't know why. But anyway, Adam, yeah, so it's a common misconception. People say, oh, doing this only increases testosterone short term and it goes back to baseline. Yeah, no shit. That's how every hormone works. Every hormone, you have baseline levels of it, and then you have acute spikes. It does what it needs to do and it goes back down, right? That's how insulin works. That's how thyroid hormones work. That's how growth hormone works. Every hormone, has acute spikes and it goes back to baseline. Testosterone is no different. So when somebody says, "Oh, doing this doesn't really matter because the spike is only temporary," retard speech. Yeah, no shit. It's supposed to be temporary. That's why you have to keep doing it over and over again to get the main benefits. It's like saying eating protein only increases muscle protein synthesis for about 3 hours, which is really what it does. And after that, it goes back to baseline. Therefore, there's no point in eating protein. What a fucking moron, right? So guys, acute spikes are very important, and you have to keep repeating those spikes. Now, to answer your question, how does that lead to more androgen receptors? So androgen receptors, right, which is an actual it's the gene, and the gene converts into a protein, whatever, transcribes for protein. They have a very short half-life, right? Meaning they don't stay in your body. Once your body makes an androgen receptor molecule, it doesn't stay in your body forever, right? But when it's attached to testosterone or DHT, which is the better ligand, it stays longer. It increases the half life and allows it to do what it's supposed to do. So let's say your body wants to give you more gains or more confidence or whatever, through the androgen receptor, it needs to bind to testosterone or preferably DHT for it to do its thing, right? If it's not attached to T or DHT, it breaks down quickly, right? So every time you're doing those acute spikes in testosterone, you're allowing T and DHT to bind to the androgen receptor to allow it to have a longer half life and therefore a longer effect on the body. That's why it has to be repeated over and over and over again. You can't do the T commandments once and be fine. Just like you have to sleep every day. You can't sleep one night and be like, oh, I'm good for the year, right? So that's how T increases androgen receptor activity, is by prolonging the half-life and obviously by directly making it do its thing, right? Because the androgen receptor cannot bind to your DNA and give you its masculine effects unless it's attached to testosterone and DHT. Also, testosterone and DHT increase their own receptors, which is very rare. Most hormones don't do that. Usually, hormones will downregulate their receptors, but T and DHT have this OP effect where the more of them you have, the more androgen receptors your body actually makes. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Again, it's more complicated than that, but I have to try to simplify things. Next, can increasing androgen receptors fix gyno at 19? Absolutely, absolutely, because gyno is caused by obviously an imbalance between multiple hormones. There's progesterone, there's estrogen, there's even growth hormone plays a role. But mainly, it's the androgen to estrogen ratio that leads to gyno. Like I said, progesterone receptor also plays a role, but for the most part, right? So when people have gynos, usually because there's an imbalance between those hormones, right? Prolactin also plays a role, but really you want to look at the DHT, which is the main androgen, to estradiol, which is the main estrogen ratio. That's why in some medical practices they use DHT derivatives to treat gyno, and it works great because it doesn't convert. Not only DHT doesn't convert to estrogen like testosterone does. That's the problem with trying to treat gyno with testosterone is testosterone itself can convert to more estrogen and make the gyno worse, right? Especially if the person has very overactive aromatase enzyme. So some medical practices use DHT because not only it's not going to convert to estrogen, but DHT has been shown to indirectly lower estrogen activity. And this is apart from it, not converting to to E2, apart from it lowering LH and FSH, whatever. It appears to stop. It appears to lower the effects of estrogen even after estrogen attaches to the estrogen receptor. So yes, increasing androgen receptors will fix gyno. And the way you'll do that is by boosting DHT. DHT is king, guys. DHT is king. Don't let nobody tell you, oh, it's just a hair loss chemical. It's just for hair loss. Prostate cancer. No, it's like saying insulin is bad because, it could give you diabetes because of insulin resistance or whatever. It's the stupidest thing ever. So yes, you want to fix your gyno, either lower your estrogen or even better, lower your prolactin, lower your estrogen, but even better, increase your DHT. And if that doesn't work, just get surgery, man. It's not that serious. Next, since most ultra wealthy men are juiced for the cognitive benefits of testosterone, by the way, this is from Fabian Arroyo. Do you think if I stay natural but have 10-10 strategic thinking and don't fold under pressure while being high T also, I could compete with them and possibly do better than them? Does this make sense? Okay, so I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. I don't like saying this because, black pill people will take it too far, but I have to be brutally honest. You're not competing with a clone version of you who's enhanced. Give up. Your best bet is that a motherfucker dies, right? You're not competing with guys who are enhanced, guys. And I'm going to tell you why. It's very simple. Being on TRT, that's why I get so mad when people say, TRT is just like being natural. My T levels are in the natural range. The biggest pile of crap ever. Being enhanced gives you such an advantage because that person can work 20-hour days, sleep for 4 hours, wake up the next day and still have 500 or 800 nanogram deciliter testosterone, right? You try doing that, you screwed. On top of that, their free T is higher. So even if you have the same T levels, they have higher free T. On top of that, their cortisol is lower because the constant stimulation of T and DHT lowers cortisol activity, right? And they also compete for actions. On top of all this, right, so they have higher cognitive function, higher sex drive, which obviously is the number one, it's the engine of men. Sex drive is the engine of men. The moment your sex drive goes to shit, you fucked. Right? So they have higher sex drive, higher focus, higher attention, higher will to compete, higher aggression, higher motivation for status, right? But the difference between them and us is it's always turned on, right? All they have to do is just inject. We have to watch what we eat, what we drink, how much we exercise, how much we sit, how much we sleep, toxins, plastics, blah, 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 blah. They don't have to do any of that stuff. I know because I have clients who are enhanced, you know? So you're never going to beat them all else equal, right? All else equal. Your best bet is, try to get a, piece of the pie, piece of the market share, and hope that, I don't know, that they make a mistake or something. And I'm being brutally honest with you guys. That's like you're telling you have to boost your T naturally, because if you don't, because even if your T is sky high naturally, you still at a disadvantage. So imagine if you have low T, you are fucked, you know. And believe it or not, all the top guys in the world are hands. Even the guys who lie and say that they're natty, they're not natty. You know, you could tell because you could look at their net androgen status relative to their lifestyle. They drink alcohol, they smoke, they do all the wrong things, they eat garbage diet, and they have high T. Where do you think that T is coming from? You know. Anyway, next. So yeah, the best you could do. I don't want to discourage you. The best you could do is just try to keep your T high, and then try to compete. In any way you can. Try to take advantage of their weaknesses and try to find a niche for yourself where you're big fish in a small pond. But I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and say that a natural person who keeps his T high will outcompete an enhanced guy all else equal. Fuck no. Next, I want to go from zero. This is from Faisal Sally. I want to go from zero fighting experience to joining in the UFC. What muscle should I train in the gym? 178 centimeters, 86 kg, 19 and 18% body fat. First of all, your body fat is, well, I don't know what. Hold on, let me do some math here. What division? Hold on. What weight class are you trying to compete in? All right, so you're 190 pounds, 18% body fat. You didn't specify, but are you trying to compete in light heavyweight? You trying to go up to light heavyweight? You trying to compete in middleweight? Are you trying to bulk? You trying to cut? You trying to compete in welterweight? I mean, you're very close to welterweight. You just gotta lose, about 20 pounds. But anyway, so I don't want to discourage you, right? If you want to compete in the UFC, you either gotta have elite genetics or you gotta be roided to the gills, right? Not roided as in Ronnie Coleman, but you know what I mean. They take a lot of DHT derivatives, a lot of PDs, a lot of peptides, whatever. It's either that or great genetics. So I'm not trying to discourage you, right? But at the same time, I don't want to give you false hope. The UFC is extremely hard to get into. Even if you do all of that, you still got to have, back to the genetics, you got to have good recovery genetics, right? Immune system, recovery from like injuries, whatever. There's a lot of great fighters who have all the technical skills that just got injured. Their career ended. Whereas others got injured and have great genetics where they're able to recover fast. So if that's your ikigai and you know that you're gonna succeed in it, go for it. But I don't want to discourage you, man. Just make sure you're on the right track. And I don't know your amateur record. I don't know how much experience you have, in MMA. As far as what muscle you should train in the gym, everything. If you're trying to get to the UFC, you got to train everything, bro. But to be specific, mainly lower body, mainly abs, mainly lower body. So glutes, hamstrings. Again, you didn't give me enough details as far as like your fighting style or your grappler. Is it jiu-jitsu? Is it striking, boxing? What's your background? Is it boxing? Is it kickboxing? Is it Muay Thai? Is it wrestling? Is it Greco-Roman? Is it freestyle? Like what is it? But yeah, find whatever your niche is. Obviously, it's MMA, so you got to be kind of like well-rounded, but you still got to have. Every champion had one thing that they would go to that. Khabib and his wrestling, GSP and his takedowns, the wrestling. John Jones is just a freaking, that crazy ass reach and his go to defense, Connor and his knockout power, Alex is knockout power right now, fucking Ilya. Every champion, even though they're well rounded, they have one thing that everyone respects. So you gotta have at least that. And based on that will help me tell you what muscle to prioritize. But for now, just definitely train your lower body. Most of fighting ability comes from the lower body. Glutes, hamstrings, train your core, obviously. And obviously, as far as upper body goes, it's mainly shoulders and back, especially if you're a grappler. All right, next for net androgen status, on a completely rest day, you mean complete rest day, how much should you lower your carbs, percentage of calories, if not a number, assuming you ate all of the carbs you needed the day before, refill glycogen stores, whatever. Okay, so on a complete rest day, assuming that your glycogen stores are fully recovered, the only glycogen levels you have to replenish at that point is your liver glycogen, because no matter what you do, you're always gonna wake up. You're always gonna wake up in the morning with low liver glycogen. Always, no matter what you do. Because it gets, it can only hold like about 100 grams. 100 to 120, and it gets depleted during sleep because the liver has to keep giving glucose to the brain to keep you alive. So you go to bed with, let's say, 100 grams of liver glycogen, you wake up with like 30, right? So on a complete rest day, you could be flexible. You only need a little bit of carbs just to replenish liver glycogen fast. So 100 to 150 grams. That's enough to replenish liver glycogen. It's going to take a few hours. The more carbs, the faster the replenishment rate. And the rest could be, protein and fats. Or if you active on rest day, which most people should be, active, like not high intensity stuff, but just active, getting steps, doing some cardio, whatever, you could just keep your carbs high, you know, depending on whether you're cutting or bulking and stuff like that. So again, to answer your question, you could go as low as 100 to 150 grams of carbs on your rest day, assuming your muscle glycogen stores are replenished. Or you could go high carb, as long as you're active and you're not sitting on your ass. A high carb would be, at least 50% of your calories from carbs or more. Next, and that was from Harrison Hunt. Next from Mark Spanos, probably butchering that. Hold on, let me see how many questions I have left. Oh shit, I gotta hurry up, man. It's almost a 30-minute video. All right, let's hurry up. What are the best ways to increase androgen receptor density and sensitivity? Also, is consuming intra-workout carbs beneficial due to the MAPK, CMPK, aggregate pathways? Should the press play loaded? Started at 20, okay. 220 pounds for 8. Holy shit, 220 pounds for 8 reps. That's really good. FFMI 19. Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, so first question: best ways to increase androgen receptor density and sensitivity. The 10 testosterone commandments. Again, like I always tell you guys, if there was a different way, don't you think I would include it into the 10 T commandments? So do the 10 T commandments. Why? Because the best way to increase androgen receptor density is to increase DHT. Right, because it's what's going to prolong the half-life of the AR the longest, and it's what's going to help increase the number of androgen receptors because DHT increases androgen receptor number as well. Sensitivity is mainly genetics because you get your androgen receptor from your mom, so your CAG repeats and stuff like that. It's the advanced stuff that I can't wait to talk about, but everyone is still asking beginner questions. But yeah, so do the 10 T commandments, boost DHT, right? Boost testosterone so that it could increase free T, so that could increase DHT, so that could increase androgen receptor activity and density, whatever. Sensitivity, like I said, you just gotta pick the right parents. Now, there's some other things you could do to increase the sensitivity, which is like, again, lower cortisol, try to avoid toxins and endocrine disruptors because they can actually bind to the AR and make it so that's less sensitive because it's competing for binding with DHT, blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, if you're doing the 10 T commandments every fucking day, you're fine. As far as in the muscle, nucleus overload, that's what it does. It increases myonuclei and satellite cells in the muscle. And the more myonuclei and satellite cells you have, the more androgen receptors. So, but you guys already know this. That's why nucleus overload is goated. So high frequency training, stuff like that. Hope that answers your question. Thanks for the detailed stats. Next, Isaiah Jimenez. I had a good friend that had that last name, Jonathan Jimenez, back in high school. That was my nigga. I wonder what happened to him. He was such a cool dude, man. He was a beast at basketball too. Crazy handles. When you saw him, he was like fat as hell, not like obese, but like fat. And you look at him, you're like, oh, he can't play ball, and he would snap your fucking ankles up, man. His name was, I think, it was Jonathan, because we had the same name, Jonathan Jimenez. I don't know how to pronounce that. Anyway, turn off the ADHD. How bad are microplastics or androgen receptors? Oh yeah, I literally just mentioned that. Can that nuke your pubertal growth? I found that when I stopped drinking from plastic water bottles and using most plastics, my growth rate increased 30 pounds. Okay, so for one, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what led to that increase in your hand growth strength. It could have been many things, right? People forget that we're not robots. We don't do the exact same thing every day, unless you're like in a lab environment or something. So, it could be a small percentage of that and a big percentage of something else. But yes, microplastics are bad on the AR, but they are still overblown and overhyped because if you do the 10 T commandments, you could still have elite nitrogen status despite using plastics. Also, the anxiety and stress from trying to avoid every bit of plastic is worse than getting rid of the plastics itself because they're everywhere. If you buy steak, it comes in plastic. You buy supplements, it comes in plastic. Eh, They're everywhere. Even the prescription from your doctor, whatever, your vitamins, your whey protein, plastics are everywhere. If you say I'm not gonna get BPA, I'm gonna get BPS, still plastic, right? So that doesn't mean you should give up, right? If you could replace plastic stuff with glass stuff, by all means, go for it. But if it's gonna cost you too much money or too much headaches, don't stress it too much because you're not gonna avoid plastics. They are everywhere. The best thing you could do is dial in the 10 testosterone commandments even more so that you could offset the nerfing that we're getting from plastics. As far as can that nuke your pubertal growth, only if it's like extreme, right? If you swimming in microplastics, of course, you know. But yeah. Anyway, next, how do I increase my libido? Is it directly correlated to testosterone? Yeah, no shit, bro. It's just like like a troll question. Who's that? Nicholas Koronev? It's probably new, but yeah, if you knew, yes, uh, it's directly correlated to testosterone. To be specific, DHT. You also need some kind of estradiol, right? The main estrogen for sex drive. Obviously, the androgen receptor is the reason why testosterone and DHT help with libido. But estradiol plays a role as well. Also, you want to keep prolactin low, but again, if you're doing the 10T commandments, you're going to lower prolactin and keep dopamine high. So, yeah, sex drive is mainly through testosterone's effects on dopamine, because you need dopamine for sex drive. Your amygdala needs to function correctly, your hypothalamus, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, if you're doing the 10T commandments, you're fine. Also, you have to be exposed to women, right, to increase your sex drive. You can't increase your sex drive dramatically if you're always home all day. It's going to go up a little bit, but not as high as it should go. Next, Hem Gore, height 172 centimeters, 65 kgs, 18 to 20% body fat, 105 pounds. Okay, I thought that was you. Okay, grip strength 105 pounds. That's the low. 112 pounds. That's the high. Let me give you a like, help you level up. What is the best frequency for sprints to boost DHT and testosterone? Well, at least 2 to 3 times a week. That's the minimum. At most, as many times as you can recover from. That's always the answer. But the minimum is 2 to 3 times a week. Next, you said, can not taking rest day decrease your T levels even if sleep is good? Of course, if you don't take a rest day, eventually you're gonna overtrain. It's just a matter of time. Depending on how hard you're training, by the way. If you're not training hard, then you don't need a rest day. But while you're not training hard, if you're training hard, you're gonna need rest days eventually. It's just a matter of time, right? Because it takes a long time to recover from damage and let fatigue go back down, and central nervous system fatigue and peripheral fatigue and all that stuff. Next, as I mentioned, my body fat is very high indeed. How low should I cut it for max test? Diet is pretty good. I think the fat is holding me back. The fat is definitely holding you back. I always say, if your body fat is higher than 15%, if you're closer to that 15 or 20% range, the closer you get to that, the more it's nuking your test in a way, or increasing your estrogen. The only exception is if you have a lot of muscle mass and you dial in everything else. But even then, that person will be better off, even if they have a lot of muscle, they'll be better off if they were leaner. So, as far as body fat percentage go, if you want maximum testosterone, maximum DHT, as close to 10% as possible, right? Ideally 10 to 15%, depending on your genetics and where you store that fat. That's why I always say it depends, it depends, it depends. You could be 15% body fat, but if most of that fat is in your midsection, you got to cut. You got to cut. Meanwhile, somebody could be 15% body fat, and most of the fat is around their legs or some shit. In that case, they're fine. They don't have a lot of visceral fat and blah, blah, blah. So, okay. Wait, does that answer your question? Let's see. Yeah, so definitely try to get leaner, and because it's definitely holding you back. No way around it. Next, how can I use trauma as tapatio trochero, my nigga tapioca. All right, how can I use trauma as revenge, like you said, without letting it spike cortisol, which is bad for testosterone? Okay, cortisol is good, guys. Acute spikes in cortisol is good, and you actually want that. When we say cortisol is bad, we're referring to chronic cortisol, chronically high cortisol. That's when it's bad. Just like prolactin is good. People think prolactin is the devil. You need prolactin. too much of it is bad. Just like even too much testosterone is bad, right? So keep that in context. You're not trying to eliminate cortisol. You just want acute spikes. And up down up down. You don't want it to be constantly elevated for a long time. Let's see. So how can I use trauma as revenge without letting spike cortisol? I want to use stress as fuel. I think I have the warrior gene, by the way, but without sending my cortisol through the roof and canceling out the benefits it could give me, especially for testosterone. How can I channel that stress into training or daily life without the negative side effects? Maybe I'm completely wrong about this, but that's how I feel. Thank you, Megan. Yeah, so you're gonna need that again. That's why I said earlier. You're gonna need some cortisol, right? To to have vengeance, rage, which is what drives every great man, right? You need some stress. Like think about it. It's impossible to be driven and ready to conquer the world if your cortisol is like 2, right? The range is 5 to 20, 5 to 25. You need some cortisol, just like you need adrenaline, right? Which is also a catecholamine. It's the stress hormone. It's a stress molecule, and you need it to burn fat, right? Without adrenaline, it's very hard to burn fat. So you need stress. It has to be controlled. It has to be acute, right? And it has to be balanced, right? So in fact, if your cortisol is too low, you might actually lose motivation. People don't know this. You actually need cortisol to feel some type of motivation. That's why if you spam ashwagandha and you crush your cortisol too low, people develop side effects where they don't care about life. They lose the desire to do certain things. There's no stress. Men need stress. It just has to be good stress, meaning acute spikes at the right time, not close to bedtime, you know, things like that. All right, hopefully that answers your question. I gotta hurry up. Next, Modi Libi. Who's typing? Motherfucker, it's too late. Who's this? Thomas Batu? It's too late, nigga. Modi Libi, you level 1, so let's help you level up. I feel like I haven't made any progress in the last 4 months. I'm just stuck at the same level. Do you think it could be because of hormones or something else holding me back, even though my training and nutrition are good? Again, everyone says that. Everyone says my training and nutrition is good. And I take a look at their diet or their training, and it is garbage. It's not even like it's okay. No, it's garbage. So first you have to, be honest with yourself. Is your training and nutrition good? Is your stress and recovery management good? Right? If it is, then it's almost impossible to not make progress because that's the whole point, right? If you're training, your diet, your 10 T commandments are dialed in, the fact that the dial in is the proof that the dial in is the results, the KPIs. You're going to notice that you're stronger, you have more energy, making progress. If you're not making progress, it's impossible to say, I'm doing everything right, but I'm not making progress. That makes no sense because the proof that you're doing everything right is the progress. You get it? So, obviously, if you say, could it be because of hormones? Yeah, but again, hormones are just a result of your diet, lifestyle, and stress management. So, and training. So, yeah, figure out what you're doing wrong. Again, I have a lot of free content, paid content. Pick whatever you can afford, again, the 10. I know I say it a million times, but it's over 20 years of research condensed into 10 rules. It works. Trust me, it works. Just do the 10 T commandments, dial in every day, and you'll be fine. Next, Walid Kartus. Khalid Ibn Al Walid. Every time I see Walid, it's the guy that I think about. He was such a goat. And no, I'm not Muslim. I just know how to give credit where credit is due. I don't do that tribal bullshit you guys do. But anyway, is it better to have more testosterone converted into DHT for muscle gain, fat loss, and the masculine sexiness in general? And if so, what is the best way to optimize that? 179 centimeters, 103 kg, 30% body fat, my nigga. You gotta cut, man. In fact, that goes your answer. One of the first things you could do is cut. On Harry Arab looking like prison. So, so Walid, to maximize, it's better to have T converted to DHT, of course. Obviously, not all of it because you need some estrogen, right? If all of your T became DHT, you have no estrogen, and you need estrogen for sex drive, even for fat loss, believe it or not, for muscle growth because it helps with IGF-1 and growth hormone, right? Like I always say, it's all about the inverted U curve, right? So yes, you want as much of your T as possible to be DHT, as long as you have some estrogen. You see what is the best way to do that? The 10 T commandments. There you go. But number one, you gotta lose body fat. The difference between DHT maxing and T maxing, even though they overlap, is number one, for DHT maxing, don't take DHT blockers, obviously. Duh, right? And the other difference is that some of the T commandments, right, become more important if DHT maxing is your goal. So it's still the 10 T commandments plus the whole don't block DHT, but the importance of each commandment changes based on whether you're trying to maximize T by itself or DHT. For example, body fat, that shit is nuking your DHT. It's nuking your T as well, but it's nuking your DHT way harder than it's nuking your T. You get it? So you got to get lean. Carbs, right? Eating a high carb diet is way more important for DHT than it is for T, even though it helps both. See? So it's the same 10 T commandments, just um, different priorities. But when I finish the DHT course, which like I say, it's been like 90% done. I just gotta make sure everybody's all caught up and stuff like that before I release it because I'm gonna get a billion questions if you guys are not past the beginner stage. Also, make sure you guys save up money because the courses are gonna be expensive. I don't give a fuck. I give you guys so much free content for so many years and like I always tell you guys, nothing is free. When I give you guys free stuff, I'm paying for it with my time, with my money, with my resources. So the courses are gonna be pricey. Obviously, I'm gonna try to find like a good middle ground because they're taking so much of my fucking time, you know? So they're gonna be pricey. Obviously, because my mission is to help young men, and a lot of young men are broke as fuck, I wanna find ways for you guys to get it for cheap. So coupon codes, if you level up in the SKOOL community, you know, so if you reach a high level, I might find a way to make you guys unlock it for free. I'll see what I could do. But don't think it's gonna be some cheap fucking course because it's so much work that I don't fucking have to do. Anyway, next, so yeah, guys, get ready for the courses. Level up or make some money. Next, Assad H, 5'10", 210 pounds, more than 30% body fat, 20 years old. Guys, your body fat is too high. You hurting your DHT, man. Anyway, I'm trying to get my morning wood back. I used to have it all the time, like 2 years ago, and I think it went away because I got fat. Yeah. I'm glad you're honest. I'm the dude that made hella money trading, so I was just making hella money and ordering Uber Eats and sitting all day. Yeah, trust me. Happens to the best of us, man. I got so fat when I started trading. I started trading around 2014, 2015, and I started getting really good around 2016, 2017. I just gained weight because I was just on the computer all day, just shorting stocks and, laughing at pump and dump motherfuckers, right, who were buying at the top. But anyway, I'm doing enough for changing here. I'm trying to get my morning wood back. Let's see. And I don't think my FMI is that high. I have muscle, but I'm not. Oh, we got a new comment. I have muscle, but I'm not that jacked. What do I have? Wait, what I do have though is big ass traps, which is an indicator of high T. Oh, it could be a nucleus overload. Maybe when you were younger, you did a lot of deadlifts or rows, or carried a heavy ass book bag or something, or a lot of shoulder work. I don't know. But anyway, if I had to theorize, it's that the fat converted my hard-earned T to estrogen. So yeah, just trying to get my morning wood back. Yeah. Number one, if you're 30% body fat, before you even mention morning wood, I was gonna tell you you probably have low T symptoms because that is too high. That is way too high. Try to get down to at least 15%. Based on what you just told me. The lower the better. Obviously, you don't want to be too low, right? Like I said, 8 to 10%. Below that, you just start to run into issues. So definitely cut. That's gonna help with your sex drive. It's gonna help with your insulin sensitivity. It's gonna help with your inflammation. It's gonna help with your gut health. Oh my God, guys, losing excess body fat comes with so many benefits. It's insane. Body fat is probably like high body fat is probably the worst thing that could happen to a man. You know, not to mention longevity and all that stuff. So yeah, get lean, boost your DHT, and that should help you get your sex drive back. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some people who have a high sex drive while they're still fat, but again, there are people who drink bleach and are just fine. Are we gonna start drinking bleach? Right? They're outliers. Next, from Holy Wrath, he just submitted this. Is it possible to be so high T that motivation for status inhibits short-term interest in cheeks? When I think about legendary T levels, I think more about Alexander conquering India without women around than some random influencer surrounded by women chilling with extremely zero aggression. No hate, just to give an idea. No hate, but just to give an idea. After all, the biggest increase came for competition. Okay, so that's first of all, that's a big misconception. People think, oh, Alexander the Great was not surrounded by women. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. He was clapping cheeks. He was even clapping Iranian cheeks, right? Because when he conquered, when he beat Darius and took over the Persian Empire or whatever, he was marrying their women. He was clapping their cheeks. Guys, the conquerors of history had notorious sex drives, even the gay ones, you know, super high sex drives. In fact, that's one of the things that drove them so much. It's very hard to separate motivation from status and sex because it's processed in the same part of the brain. The amygdala, is like a central hub as well as the hypothalamus. So the wires are crossed. So it's very hard to have very high motivation for status and low sex drive. Can it happen? Of course. Anything can happen. But on average, it's very rare. So yes, these guys were horny. I mean, look at Genghis Khan, right? So no, it's not possible to be so high T that your motivation for status inhibits short interest in cheeks. It's actually the other way around. The more you're motivated for status, simultaneously your sex drive will also skyrocket. The two are linked because that's the whole point. Like the brain increases your motivation for status. Why? So that you can get cheeks. See? Your brain doesn't increase motivation for status just for the sake of status. It's because humans are social beings. We evolved in the social hierarchies where women pick the men at the top of those hierarchies. The best hunter, the best farmer, the best warrior, the best blacksmith, whatever. So we seek status subconsciously because it gets us cheeks, whether you know or not. Okay? All right, that's it, guys. Join the SKOOL community before price increases. Buy the eBooks. Hire me from coaching. I'm out.